Okay, I'm going to turn it over to you now. This meeting ought to be a very, people ought to just speak up, and, you know, like a friends meeting. When you feel moved to talk about one of these people, just speak right up. Bernie is going to talk about a few, and we'll ask some of the other members to talk about them too. Why don't
she sit?
How is your knee, by the way?
Pour in your knee first.
I guess you better talk about the need first.
How is it?
Women's knees, of
Being
course.
a remarkable woman.
I'm a bionic woman. I have 2 steel knees.
They got a lightning storm.
Just doing really good. I go to the doctor tomorrow to see if I can drive my car. So
That's good.
it's been a little hard having to.
Where will you be going, Bernie? I thought maybe Very fancy drive.
Well, I don't know whether anyone else has any information on Elsie Atwood, but she was sort of a character way back. She lived right beside of me when I was first married, and her husband owned the garage right across the street. And there wasn't any telephone in the garage, so every time anyone wanted Ellsworth, Elsie would bang out of her door, run out in the street waving so the cars wouldn't hit her. Ellsworth, 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 telephone! And I might be out in my garden or something, and I had to chuckle. And one funny thing that happened, she went down cellar to get something, and her son Leland locked the door. And he wouldn't come and unlock it. She hollered and yelled and hollered and yelled. So finally she went to the cellar window, screamed and hollered, "But Ellsworth, come let me out!" She was a dear.
Sounds like Leland.
It was.
Does anybody else remember anybody else you have with?
In my Cadillac that I had, there was a card that said the 888, and Ellsworth's name was there. Cornish Black. Way back in 19 something or other. And I couldn't believe it.
He was such a small person, such a small man, that when he was working on a truck, he'd get right up in the motor. He couldn't stand on the ground and reach, so he just crawled right up in it.
Well, he was the one in the sign with the dog.
Yeah, it's in town, from the town.
Yeah, I got some.
Yeah.
When I was in the 4th grade, which is back in the 40s, the first time I met the Atwoods, I knew them. I had won a poster contest in a fire convention week, and the Atwoods took me to Concord to a convention down there. I remember that.
They were good neighbors.
Well, you lived in that little house.
Yeah,
Right across from,
It's right across from here.
yeah.
Porch on the front. That was my honeymoon cottage.
Yeah, right. Where was that? Wasn't it a hat shop?
Yes. Yeah, they made, that was a millinery shop.
Bernie, where did you live? In what house? Where did you live?
Where did I live?
Yeah.
Um,
Right across from us?
right across from Helen Lake's house. You know
Helen
that?
Lake's house.
Yeah, right across the street from Helen Lake. Right beside of where Atwood's lived, and Atwood lived right across from the garage.
Was Ellsworth Ellsworth is the one we all know, right?
No.
Yeah, it's Leland's father.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
How many of you remember Vera Bailey? Was anybody going to talk about her? Helen, you want to say something?
I can't say too much about her, except that she was a teacher, and she ended up teaching in Claremont after a while. And some of my nieces went to school to her and played the piano for her, for the class singing.
Her parents were Will Whitcomb. I don't know Vera, his first name, but she was Vera Whitcomb before she married Bailey. And she started the Cornish Orchestra in 54 or 55. And there were 20 members in the orchestra.
Where did it play?
conducted it.
Where they play?
They played around different places, Cornish. It's a national.
You gotta speak that out.
Bernie,
Yes?
is that the picture that we've seen in the past of everybody dressed up in band costumes with drums and stuff?
No, that's the old one.
That was the band.
Not the orchestra.
That was a good one. Till Friday.
Who's going to talk about Anaheim? Anyone?
I remember her. She served on the school board.
Yes, you were.
Good member. She kept the books.
Yes.
After she left the board, the books went
Was she
to
treasurer?
to Claremont.
Well, she was on the school board. I looked it up in the town reports today. And she started in 1946, and she was still in up through 1960. So she was on
17 years.
she was on the school board with a number of others changed through the years. I think she was treasurer for a while. She was also secretary of the Cornish Grange. Evelyn Lear used to bring her because she didn't drive. Okay, Dot Hawkins? Anyone want to talk about Dot? She ran the greenhouse at 120 toward Claremont there, toward just beyond the South Cornish store. And she had a marvelous green thumb. She could just grow anything. Anything you bought from her just flourished beautifully. I don't know too much else about her.
Which house has a greenhouse?
The one beyond where,
Is that next to Lucash?
Lucash was in the after Hunt house.
Yeah. And she's the
next one.
Yeah, there are trees up back. Christmas trees.
Yeah. Okay, Peg Densmore. Ellen, are you talking about Peg?
Well, Peg's name was Willow, and she was very much interested in school affairs. And when they were needing to do something to have a central school instead of all the little ones around, she and her husband started the Penny Jamboree for the PTA and asked people to have a box and put their spare pennies in it to get ready to get an architect to design a building. And it was the forerunner of the Cornish Fair. Because as time went on, the other people stepped in and did a lot more, and it started as a small fair and has grown ever since. And she served a number of years on the school board. I don't know just when, but I know she did.
She started the Cornish Republican Club.
Oh, that's right.
And also, how many here remember the town hall before we had any kitchen? There's a few of them, you see. Anyway, we had a little oil stove that we used to warm stuff up on right in the corner of the town hall. That's the only kitchen there was. And Peg Densmore was the one who got the kitchen going. She and her husband started all the business. So it's much better now.
Bernice, wasn't she also active in Rainbow or something?
Yes, I think so.
4-H?
4-H, yes, she was.
I knew it was something else because when the copy machine, well, it wasn't copy, it was a digital machine, went from Harriet to Peg Densmore, and one of the uses was for some youth organization. But it must have been 4-H.
She did a lot for children. She was really interested in the school. Okay, Harriet Reynolds.
That's supposed to be because I know her. And I'm not sure if anybody else hardly remembers her. I'm sure Mike remembers her. She was on the school board for a good many years, and actually the school board records, the school financial records didn't go to Claremont until after she went off because I did the bookkeeping for her, so I remember that they did stay in town.
She was on the board from 62 through 69.
That sounds about That's after she finished her term after she had her stroke. And she actually did do some too after she had her stroke and recovered a little bit. She did participate to a certain extent, but she was nearly at the end of her term.
And she was also a member of one of the starters of the Republican Club that passed.
Oh, yes, yes.
And
She was very good program, the school program, that she gave money for the essays, for the children.
When she originally gave that, I don't know what's happened, but at the time she gave it, there was citizenship, but there was also 2 awards for each grade for improvement, I believe, in reading and math, but I'm not really sure what they were, but apparently either the money's run out or something because they apparently don't award those anymore. She also was briefly a member of Cornish Grange.
yeah, and she was also active in the PTA fair when it started,
Yes.
which went into the
And
annual Cornish fair.
she and George ran the dairy show for several years. She also was a civil defense director for several years when it first started. Before, I think before Paula Clare took it over.
I have Hazel Deming down here. I don't know too much what to say about Hazel Deming. She was a very sweet lady. Her husband was very active in the church in the Grange, and she went with her husband every time. And she was one of the present ones, you know, would attend all the meetings. I don't know if she contributed an awful lot to the town. I can't think of anything that she actually did.
She contributed to the hospital.
Yes. He was the type that would do things. If there was a broken chair, after everybody went home, he'd take it, put it in his car, and it would come back. When you come to the next meeting, it would be there all repaired.
Oh, that's a nice man.
No word, no word. He would never say anything about doing it, you know.
Well, I have a pair of candlesticks that he made from some oak that another friend had given my husband. So, yes.
Evelyn Leah.
You think we're going to talk about our old relative?
I think that's fair enough, yeah.
Tell about their she belonged to the WCTU, the Cornish Grange, the Cornish Church. She was very, very active. She worked for years in the drafting department, wasn't it, of Joy Sullivan?
Oh, yes. She also belonged to the Women's Relief Corps.
Yeah.
She used to drive as a volunteer for the Blonde. She belonged to all degrees of the Grange and really got into it. She was a state committee member, I think membership committee for the state Grange in Pomona.
I remember when she won a contest for cookies, a recipe for
The
cookies.
Pillsbury Bake Off.
And she won the national, and she got a new stove.
Yeah.
The national.
She was very lucky that way. I don't remember what the contest was, but she also won a Turnatron TV set one year. She was very lucky. I don't think Peg and I have ever won anything that way. Evelyn always used to win them.
She won the historical, the contest we had for the Historical Society, she won that one too.
That's right.
Or
She
whatever happened to
also-
the recipe.
What was it about? What was it?
Yeah, that's
What was the recipe?
The cookies?
Yeah.
I think I read it.
Yeah.
that sounds like something worth keeping.
She also did the decorations after our mother died. She did the decorations for Old Home Day.
Oh, she
For-
did, yes, for Memorial Day.
Many, and for more.
Memorial Day. Yeah. And she was secretary of Old Home Day at one time.
Yes, she was.
Yes. She also.
But she also had one of the first 3 farms. She had one of the first 3 farms in the state.
Oh, very first year. And she used to work out in that.
Yeah.
She worked too. She had her long saws.
Where was the tree farm?
Up in the woods.
That's where we live.
That's where we lived. That's where her mother lived before she was married.
That was the Gower place.
Oh, a Gower.
Right.
She also was on the planning board, and I think maybe from the time it first started.
Yeah, she was one of the first.
She was a busy person.
Well, I just remember her always in the beautiful glads at all the home.
There she was, always in a beautiful flower. After she died, I took over decorating Memorial Day and Old Home Day. I've had different people help me. Anybody who wants to help,
Yeah.
thank you. I'm open for assistance anytime. I'm going to just say a little bit about Roy Howell's mother, and I don't even know what her name was.
It was Abby.
Abby?
Abby. Yes.
Yes. Did you know her? Did you know something to say about her?
Well, what I wanted to say was I could have been more than 10 or 12 years old when I was at Old Home Day. And she always took care of the coffee. And she was a little bit of a woman. She was smaller than I was at whatever age it was. And so I said to her, well, how do you handle that big urn? Because they had the big urns, not what they have today, but they go 100 cup. Yes. And I said to her, how do you take, lift that up and move it? She said, I always find a man to do it for me. With a big twinkle in her eye, it was the cutest thing. And according to the town history, she worked on the dinner for Old Home Day all her life. So she contributed that way.
I can remember Roy Howell being tax collector, and he kept around to different people's homes collecting taxes. And I can remember him driving on the Fitch driveway when I was a child. Came to collect taxes.
Did you know when he was coming?
No, you don't know when he's coming. He drives in. Eliza Pager Road is
Oh, well,
named.
that's the one
Yes.
that Joan wrote.
Yes. And she had a brother Will, and they lived up the end of the road, Pager Road, where Coles live now. And she, in the wintertime, she never dared have a very hot fire. And my husband Conan went up there once to do something for her. And with him sitting around on the wood stove.
House must have been kind of cold.
She had a brother Will, he's buried in the cemetery up in back of the Center Church. But for years, he used to come and sit up in the balcony of the Congregational Church, and he was the enumerator. He sat up there and counted all the heads. Afterwards. Okay, you want to talk about Blanchwood tonight?
No, I'm going to say Blanchwood.
Say, okay.
I mean, if anybody wants to say anything about Blanchwood now, please do, but I'd really rather spend some more time on her.
Clara Weld, she was born in Claremont and married Norris, and she was always very, very active in the 4-H work with children, and especially in the church work too. She did an awful lot. Was a good leader. She would stand up in front of the crowd and say a prayer, you know, not die before I do it. And she was very active in the Farm Bureau too. I think she was an officer a number of times.
She had quite a Bible study too, though.
She was also the clown at Cornish Fair.
Oh, yes, yeah, that's right.
She had a little shop for a while.
Yes, yeah, the rocking horse shop. It didn't do very well. There wasn't enough traffic.
No, she was too far back.
Yeah.
Wasn't she also the disciplinarian at the schoolyard during recess?
She was for a while, and she
I
was
think I
very...
heard a few stories about you didn't get out of line if you saw a car heading your way.
When she first started, she was very, very shocked. Some of the talk that cheek wrapper like on the back of the neck. You can't do that nowadays, I guess, but boy, they worked.
She made pies, I remember.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. She made pies for the Great Ledges over in Grantham for a while. I don't know how long. 20 pies or more. Take over the time.
I remember one time the Cornish Rescue Squad decided we were going to do baked bean dinner fair, and nobody volunteered to do baked beans. And Polly Wren had never made baked beans in her life. And so I went around with people, and one day I walked into Clara's house and they had a meeting. You were probably there. And it was some kind of a meeting, and I said, help, I need help, and I got all kinds of tips on how to do baked beans. And the other people in attendance, I think, when I was there.
Well, the first time I saw Clara was at the fair back in '53. And her boys were small at the time, and they were asleep on the grass. She was sitting at the table taking tickets or doing something, and the boys were asleep on the ground.
Talking about being asleep, this doesn't have anything to do with any elderly person, but I was secretary of the fair for 15 years, I guess. And my twins were born. I was secretary. And when they were 2 years old, the fair was different then, I'll tell you right now. Because I had to be in the speaker's booth there, which was by the old spring house, right back at the little town hall. In the old school there. And we had a table with chairs and back there, and we threw our jackets and sweaters by the spring house there. And my kids would run around the fair all day. Whenever they wanted something, they knew where I was. They'd come to me. And got to be 11:30 on one of the nights. We were closing up. Everybody had gone home about, where were the twins? Nobody knew where Robin and Ronnie were. Everybody, all the directors that were there were out hunting for my two little kiddos. We finally found Robin, all curled up in those jackets and sweaters, fast asleep. Nobody could find Ronnie. I asked somebody, did you look in the town hall? Yes, town hall's locked. I've looked in there. Looked everywhere. I began to think somebody had stolen it. I was getting really worried. So finally I said, well, unlock the town hall again, please. We went in there and we had a large chair with a velvet cushion in it and everything for the Queen. The Queen was sat in that on the stage. Well, that was put in the town hall for safekeeping, and that was up against the wall, and he had crawled in that chair and gone to sleep. And the fellow who had gone all through never saw him. Didn't see him. That was a scary time. Well, he didn't lose Ronnie.
She also had a store, well, remember, in her house.
Yes.
Yes. Ronnie was. Holly Lynette. A lot of you remember her because we just lost her. She was the 11th child, and she was brought up on Fertile Hill. And because she was the last one, her father liked his drink pretty much, and things were getting kind of bad there in the family. And so she was sort of boarded out. She lived with a number of different families. She lived with Louise, her older sister, 20 years between the two girls. And she lived with Louise for a year or more. I don't remember how long. Remember, Michael?
Yeah, I think so, yes. Then she lived with the Tracys.
She lived with the Tracys, young girl, and
Down in Langwood.
she had 6 boys herself. And it was her idea to turn the Grange Hall over to the town by the Grange for office space. And she was on the planning board too a number of times. A number of years, I guess.
I think she's also one of those in the Grange that started the Veterans Memorial. We have
Yes, she was there.
She was very active in the Catholic Church. She was very active in the Catholic Church, particularly
Yes.
the last,
St.
well,
Francis.
10 years. service because on Sunday mornings, all Sunday, there's about 10 to 12 cars up there every time you come by.
They go see the dead.
They still have the same theory.
We have a couple of things about Susan and Angelina and Madison Gordon.
Okay.
Who would like to talk about Susan Van Ness there? John, who's going to do it?
Well, I would say that Susan had a way about her of knowing what the town needed, what was good for the town, like starting a recycling center and just, it seemed like there was a group of people who were trying to do things like simply, and Susan really encouraged a lot of people in like the 70s to like do that back to the earth movement, and like she always talked about farmers market, you know, just the things that are going on now are things that Susan had that look to the future about, you know, and it's just too bad that she's not there. And she was really intelligent, and she had this intelligent simplicity about her. That, you know, everything should be simple. That, you know, life should be simple, but yet she was extremely intelligent. And I brought my book, and I know John has his, and there's a copy of her life in the library. And she was really interesting. She lived in the what is that, the Atwood House? Where the bank is, right? The bank. And she moved from here to Bellingham, Washington. And there's the one story that I got a letter from, and she had done this community gardening area. And she said that all the people in all the other, had all the little plots around her, were really upset with her because she was letting the dandelions grow. She was trying,
But her house was really a center of a hotbed of activity. She was not a member of the Republican Party.
I remember the retriever.
Oh, Roscoe.
Yeah.
Yes.
We had one of those. We were all used
She had a St. Bernard's for a while too. I just got up one morning and the St. Bernard was in my kitchen in the trash eating the food that was in there. The door open, gone right in.
Many people don't know that Susan actually lived in Cornish early on in the 1950s. Her parents lived on Route 12A in a house that Orly went to help me out. It was right across from the Nichols house that he's a carpenter. What was his name? It's not Canada.
That's where Overman lives.
Overman, yeah. For Overman, that they lived there, and her family came from the Seacoast area, but they lived there for a while. And so she was familiar with Cornish at an early stage, although she was in the WAFs. She was in the Army.
She was a what?
Yeah, she was.
Which theater?
World War III. I have it. It's in the book here.
No, actually World War II. But
Yeah.
I don't think that's the actual period, right?
It must have been the end of World War II. She was trained at Great Lakes in Illinois. She also wrote articles for Antiques magazine and for the Concord paper on antiques. She collected antiques. She was very familiar with them. And she used them. When you went into her house, it wasn't, there were tags on a lot of things, but she still used them.
Didn't she take the electricity out and put kerosene around?
She had electricity in a very limited part of the place, very limited.
I saw her electric bill once, and it was $7.
Yeah. I think there was a light in the barn.
John, she was born in Bellows Falls.
Yes, I didn't say she was born here. I said she lived here for a brief time.
She knew Bellows Falls.
Did she have siblings?
Yeah, she had two sisters. She still has a sister who lives in Bellingham and a brother who was in the submarine Navy, in the submarine force. But they were really New Hampshire people from the seacoast, which is partly, I think, her character. She really had that soul, bones. And she was really communitarian in mind, which was very interesting to me. The big day in her life was kind of meeting day, and it came to be the last time. It was so sort of demure that I sort of thought of her. And, we never had a demure meeting when she was.
It was never demure when she was around.
I remember her kitchen. She always had herbs hanging down and chickens hanging. She cooked on a wood stove. Pots were bubbling.
She had a great burlap dress.
Very big on recycling. Recycling was one.
Yeah, and the library, she's also a trustee in the library too.
Yeah, good things grew in the garden besides vegetables.
She used to come by my house she used to come by and ask me to dig her weeds because she would, I grew great weeds and she would come by and cultivate my weeds for me and pick them and cook them.
Right, big weeds, she loved it. Big weeds.
And to this day, I can't go into the main recycling shed without the vision of Susan sitting there in a rocking chair, carving hands. I always love that. I was over at Flowers and watched half an hour.
Well, I guess we could end with Annette Gordon's going.
Yes, let's please straighten out the minute. Charles Sherwood got confused.
Well, how was he confused?
He said, who the hell is?
Would have been, no, this could have been a
No, he asked me who the hell Annette was.
Well, because some people spell their name with an E and some people spell their name with an A. We went around this for a long, long time and we decided on A. I have something over here that she signs it with an A. Is that the issue or not?
No, he just didn't, I don't know, after I sent the program, I got the note back, who the hell is Annette?
I see. Okay, well, that's pretty easy to figure out. I mean, she was born in Columbus, Ohio, if you want some of these facts, in 1869, and then went to New York to study at the Art Students League. She studied both with John Trackman and of course with Augustus St. Gaudens. And he was so impressed with her work that, well, his brother was also impressed with her too, because it was his brother who married her. But they went to Ohio after they were married, and then Augustus St. Gaudens really wanted her to come back and work in his studio because he so admired her work. I have a brief description of her. I don't know whether she fits what your memory are. This is something that Marion Mackay wrote about her. She said that she was very, very shy and that they had a veritable frontiersman's hearth in their house. As we went in there before the huge open fireplace with its blackened crane and huge black kettle, with the steam sizzling from it, was our dinner. And I think she was somewhat taken aback because the dinner was sitting in the ashes. While on the crane, with its many hooks, hung more steaming food. In the ashes and on the crane, it had all been cooked. They lived in a very primitive way, she knows. Do you remember that?
Yes, because I was invited there many times. And she always cooked right before everything.
She talks, I mean, she also says that she was short, that she was small as well as being shy, very diminutive, and talks about a little nut-like quality of reticent grace, which is just a nice sort of, I mean, I don't know her, but that's just a nice phrase for what someone would be. Of course, when she came here, they were looking for a place to live, and she went around and she spied the nearby Shaker community over there in Enfield, and she was taken with the meeting house. built there in 1793. She purchased the building for $150, but it remained over in Enfield. And then they had to get it from Enfield over here to Cornish, and that was not an easy thing. They decided to dismantle it board by board and transport the timbers and the handmade nails by rail car from the depot in Enfield over to Windsor. And then they had to get from Windsor up Binghamton Hill, and that was not easy. The building site was 4 miles and 700 feet higher than where it had been. It took them 4 days and 2 wagons, 4 strong horses to get the lumber up there, and the last half mile was so steep that it took 4 horses to pull 1 ton. They had 3 men to help. They got the building up and enclosed by the 1st of December, and they were working on the roof during the first snowstorm. Apparently the entire cost for this and moving it and constructing it was just $600, and they were very, very proud of that house.
My grandmother was a neighbor,
Right.
you know. The men who worked on that house when they were putting it together got their meals over at my folks' house, and Vera used to get up every morning by 3 o'clock and start baking.
She must go to work pretty early.
No, she made, yeah, I was getting in, breakfast, yeah.
Jim,
Yeah.
I'd also like to mention something that I of course, lived in this house.
Right,
and
right.
Margaret St. Gaudens was her daughter-in-law, and she told me some wonderful stories about Annetta, because Annetta was really quite a strange person. One of the stories was that she was the only socialist in town, and she came all the way from California to vote in the election, so that there would be 1 vote for the socialist candidate.
This is a true fact. I mean,
This is a true fact.
because we've been trying. Mike and David told me the same story.
Well, and
but
it proves that you see it.
Mike was very, very careful to say we don't have written evidence for this. It's hearsay. It's hearsay. I would like.
It doesn't matter.
That was only a wonderful story. We know it really doesn't
She
matter.
also had a wonderful tactic. Cocktail parties were just starting to be popular. In her, when her son was just married to Margaret Berry. And Margaret told a wonderful story about Annetta was a teetotaler, a true first member of the WCTU in Ohio. In fact, her mother, when the WCTU took over, went out into the Ohio field next to their farm and destroyed all the grapevines because she didn't want to. So there was a great deal of, there was a heavy hand there as far as WCTU, which manifests itself in Cornish, but she'd get Margaret and Paul to take it down to the Beamans who had a cocktail party, where she would, instead of being part of the party, would hand out tracts against drinking. That was the party. Most of them called her Aunt Nutty, as a result.
Well, we have a couple of pieces of her art up here for you to look at later. Bernie, I think it's only fair for you to talk about this. Or would you rather not? Go ahead.
Well, that figure on the handle.
On the handle.
Was me when I was
Light. Young and light.
yes.
Right. But it makes a very comfortable handle for this beautiful picture that she did.
It was hard bending over backwards when I was posing.
I bet it was a lot easier then than now. And this, you probably do know the story about this. This is a picture of Eleanor Wilson as Ornis in the bird mask that was done for Ernest Harold Baines there in the sanctuary. And this is a terracotta figure that she did, and she's very proud of that. And then this is something that I can't really decipher the date on it. but it is, she loved to work in terracotta. It's a little medallion of Paul St. Gaudens, her son, and it just says Paul St. Gaudens. I can't read the next word. There's a date here.
1922.
Is that it? Okay. Look later, but maybe it is. But the neat thing about it, in addition to saying that it's Cornish on the back, it's also the hairpin is worked into the terracotta so that you can hang it on your wall with a hairpin. I remember my mother used to have these kind of hairpins. I haven't seen one for a long, long time. But these are things that you could look at if you want to afterwards. As long as we're talking a little bit about her, it was in 1921 that she started that orchard kiln pottery with Paul, her son, up there. And yes, she did go to California, Pomona, I think, to be with her mother. So she must have come back to vote here. She died out there in 1943. There's a long little piece here about a work that she did, but it kind of dovetails with the notion of her politics and her art. It's something written by Frances Duncan, who was someone who commented very frequently on the gardens here in Cornish. But she was very impressed with this piece that Annetta did called Salvation. And it's a little long, and that'll be the end of it. Let's read that. Salvation is the lunette in bold relief, dominated by the central figure, the Christ, the personification of love. It's not the Christ most frequently represented in art, the Christ of infinite patience, of endurance, of meekness, of pitying love for humanity. Instead, this relief shows the young, victorious Christ, whose wonderful energy and force drove the money changers from the temple. Below it are the two groups epitomizing the two great evils with which our modern world is grappling. And we already have a hint as to what one of them might be. Annetta St. Gaudens is, I think, the first to link them, and yet one has probably ruined as many lives and devastated as many homes as the other. In the left-hand group, militarism is the mother supporting the body of her wounded or dying soldier son, and the young wife or sweetheart leaning over her shoulder. The mother, the dominating figure of this group, is fine in her dumb acquiescence to sorrow, the strong endurance in which women have for centuries faced this grief. As this group is the mother's, the tragedy in the right-hand group is peculiarly the wife's. The husband, shattered and helpless, not by an enemy's bullet, but by drink. Her attitude is pitying and protecting toward the man, but with something also in it of passionate revolt against his condition. From over her shoulder, half hiding behind their mother, peer the children, half fascinated, half frightened. Below these groups, like an evil root, is the heavy, sinister, crouching figure, domination by force, and with it, inherited privilege. All these have capital I, capital P, capital D for domination, sort of emphasizing their allegorical nature. Producing on the one hand militarism, and the other the parasitic woman, the mere plaything and idler. This idea of a state and nation freed from the age-old weight of evils, a state in which every citizen's well-being is a matter of mutual interest and concern, the idea expressed in Mrs. St. Gaudens' sculpture is held by many a woman citizen. So here was a woman talking about the essential nature of this woman's composition, and I think a fitting way to end this evening about famous women in Cornish. But, as I said, there's more for next year. There's more to come back. We're not finished. Let's have some refreshments.